Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Rossi, Chairman of the Clinton Aquifer Protection Agency. I would like to call our quarterly April meeting to order. Will clerk please call the roll?
Mike Florio.
Here.
Ellen Dahlgren. Eddie Alberino.
Here.
Mike Knudsen. Chinzia Lettieri. Jay Mandel. Zach Flurd advised us he would not be here this evening. Dylan Walter.
Here.
Bo Clark.
Here.
Lawrence Edwards. And Susan Marcus. Here.
I'm sorry, did you talk about, you say they were Mike Knudsen?
Yes, he had
Okay.
emailed us advising that he has to travel to Indiana. If possible, he might call in Zoom.
Yeah, he said he's.
Okay. I would like to seat Bo Clark for Ellen and Susan for Mike Knudsen.
I'm sorry, Chair Rossi, Ellen Dahlgren just joined us via Zoom.
Okay, well then I'll seat Bo for Jay Mandel.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With that, we're at review of minutes for the January 8th, 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any comments, corrections, or questions?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve minutes.
Chinzia just came in.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. I don't believe we have any old business. Was there any new business that didn't make the agenda?
There is not.
Okay. In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the APA meeting.
So moved. We have three more.
Three moves, somebody's there.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 6:47. Thank you.
That was a big meeting.
And we're really, you can stop the recording. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Rossi, Chairman of the Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission. I would like to call this regular monthly meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Sure. Michael Rossi,
Here.
Mike Florio,
Here.
Ellen Dahlgren,
I'm here.
Eddie Alberino,
Here.
Mike Knudsen, Chinzia Lettieri, here. Jay Mandel,
Here.
Zach Ford, who told us he was not going to be available tonight. Dylan Walter,
Here.
Bo Clark,
Here.
Lawrence Edwards, not here, and Susan Marcus. Here. Great.
Okay. Thank you. I want to seat Bo Clark for Mike Knudsen, and I'll seat Susan for Zach. And we have a quorum. First thing on there is chair's comments, and I would like to apologize to everybody for me being remote tonight. I know that's not ideal, and try to do the best I can under the circumstances. So let's move on. Item 3 is the minutes. We have review and approval of the March 11, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any comments, concerns, or questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Abstaining? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. With that, we move to the public hearing. Would the secretary please read the legal notice of public hearing?
Is there somebody local who can do that? I'm on a very slow connection and it's very hard to pull up, different, screens.
Do we have somebody with a copy of it there?
Kathy is pulling it up right now.
I'm using, Christie's computer, so I'm just figuring out where everything is. Just bear with me one moment. So this is
Thank
for
you.
22. Okay. Files. Apologize, just bear with me here. I'm jumping on another computer, so. Legal notice of public hearing, I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Town meeting.
Would
All
you
right.
be willing to read it, Kathy?
Sure. Legal notice of public hearing for hybrid, the town of Clinton, the green room of the town hall. The town of Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a hybrid public hearing on Monday, April 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. Requesting text amendments to the zoning regulations of the town of Clinton to permit electric vehicle charging display kiosks as an accessory use permitted by special exception on parcels classified in the Interchange Development Zone, IDZ, Business 1 and Industrial 2 districts, and the applicant is Volta Charging LLC.
Did the amendments to section 28 get noticed?
They did, yes. It's just a different file that Kathy has to go in to read that.
Oh. It's usually, okay. Because it didn't have the dates that they were published. That's why I was concerned.
Yeah, I'm sorry, again, I'm kind of jumping on last minute here.
I know. You're doing well.
Yeah, this hybrid is a problem.
See if I can pull this up. Legal notice, this is second publication. Yeah,
Well, this is 328.
yeah, it is, yes, 328 and 44. This is April 4th of 2024. So that's the second notice.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, so we're having our public hearing, this is for, Planning and Zoning Commission, item 24-2. The text amendments to permit electric vehicle charging. It's by Volta Charging LLC. Is there an agent or applicant here to present on this proposal?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Kristen Motel. I'm a partner at the law firm Cuddy and Bader on behalf of Volta Charging, who is a wholly owned subsidiary of Shell. And with me tonight is Mike Dennehy of Shell and Volta Charging, as well as Dean Apostolaris from Kimley Horn. They're the engineers for Volta. And as you're aware, this project relates to the proposal to put EV charging stations in the Stop and Shop parking lot on Main Street. Previously, we commenced this process in 2022. So you may remember this proposal. It looks pretty familiar to what was filed back then. At that time, there was a pause shortly after we filed the petition for zoning amendments. Volta was being acquired by Shell, so that was the reason for the pause and the delay. Now they're back, and Shell's eager to deploy the EV charging infrastructure. So we're, recommencing with this process. So Volta's petitioning, for the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve amendments to zoning regulations to permit EV charging stations with electronic displays. And that's in limited instances. So on properties that are commercial or industrial or near the interchange area, by special exception. So they are hybrid and codependent displays, sort of built into the charging stations themselves. These displays have a number of limitations that are proposed in the amendments that were drafted. For example, they are not going to produce sound. They're only static images. They are not intended for any off-site visibility, hence the large setback distances that are being proposed. And the whole reason for this is that Volta's model is to provide subsidized or, in some instances, free charging to patrons of their partners, so patrons of Stop and Shop in this case, or, the Clinton outlet site is included in here, patrons of that. Meaning that any type of vehicle, these are universal chargers, can charge at that discounted rate, but in order to do that, the cost of the electricity has to be defrayed, right? So they use advertising and marketing to allow that service to be provided, that amenity. And so the zoning regulations, as you had seen from the COG memo, really advance sustainability initiatives, including Clinton's POCD initiatives. They support green infrastructure, they promote economic growth, and supporting, the business environment, while promoting EVs to reduce emissions. The stations are publicly available at convenient locations, which is part of Volta's mission. And the market for Volta's model really depends on longer stays and significant foot traffic. So places like grocery stores or large shopping centers, outlet malls, where people spend more time, that's the ideal model. So what we've done with the amendments that are being proposed kind of mimics that with, like I said, with the setbacks and with the limitations that are proposed. There's no loss of parking spaces in this instance, even though, this will be special exception. So every site will get, the Planning and Zoning Commission will get to review anyway. In the case of the Stop and Shop, there's no loss of parking spaces here. And I think your planner did a really great job kind of laying out the standards in the amendments and the comments from the Design Review Board, who we met with a few weeks ago. The majority of those comments were focused, as you read in Abby's memo, on the content of the signs and the size of the display themselves. And I'll let Mike talk a little bit more about Volta and Shell, but these are like pre-manufactured stations. So these aren't like custom built to whatever parking lot they're going into. And this is a standard model. Volta has the most utilized EV charging network in the country. So this is like tried and tested. And the great thing about them being with a publicly traded company is that this infrastructure will keep getting upgraded. It's going to get maintained, as opposed to some EV charging infrastructure that is all like based on subsidy, and you run the risk of it being like kind of defunct or aging in place. Here, Shell and Stop and Shop and their partners are constantly advancing. So there's that built-in improvement of technology.
These are the same ones that are in the, Mr. Chairman, with permission, are these the same ones that are in the 7 plazas? See them all lined up.
No,
These are different.
No, so we have approximately
Just asking.
17 locations in Connecticut. 10 of them are at Stop and Shops throughout the state, Brookfield Properties, places like that. But we are not in the service areas, no.
Sir, I'm sorry, can you just state your name for the record?
Sorry, I'm Mike Dennehy. I'm the general manager for network development with Volta Charging.
And can you please spell your last name?
DENNEHY.
Thank you.
Go ahead and continue.
Are we asking, can we?
No, no, we're not asking questions yet. They're still doing their presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple of footnotes. Kristen did a great job of like letting people know who Volta is. We have over 3,700 stations throughout the country. With a very good footprint in the Northeast. I work out of Boston. We're starting to develop things down into the Mid-Atlantic. We're working through the bipartisan infrastructure law and trying to use some of those grant dollars that are coming. Connecticut DOT is doing a great job rolling out their NEVI plan. They picked specific sites along 95 and other of the alternate fuel corridors. Unfortunately, this area of the state, you have to go up north a little bit to Old Saybrook. That's one of their pins on the map. But we're entertaining conversations with all of the DOTs to work towards getting these stations in the ground sooner.
Okay. Do you have any more presentation? Is there any more? Okay,
Yeah,
before I, go ahead.
we're just gonna ask our project engineer to walk through the site plans. This way we can entertain any questions specifically.
Well,
having-
the site plan isn't the agenda item tonight. The agenda item is the change in the regulations. So the site plan itself is not something that we should be looking at now. That would come into play if this is approved and you come back to us with the site plan.
Okay, to the extent there's any questions about the technology, there's a sheet in there that we can pull up to show you, but
The
that's.
technology is appropriate, you're correct. Okay. Bo, you had said you had a question. I'll let you go ahead.
Well, my concern and my question is in reading the design review board had the same concerns. I wonder if this conflicts with our sign regulations. And also that's my biggest concern. Is conflict with our existing sign regulations.
So the zoning amendments that we are proposing carve out an exemption for the digital displays built into the charging stations. So they're distinguishable from other instances like this in that they are associated with a sustainable infrastructure, sustainable transportation infrastructure.
My concern is that we're having a conflict and we could be circumventing our existing regulations, and I think that has to be addressed, and I don't think we want to have a regulation that conflicts with another regulation that deliberately overrides that regulation. It just makes things very confusing. So I think that's something that I haven't looked at it in detail, but I think that's something that all of us should look into in detail before we make a decision on this type of an issue.
And I'll step in here also. It's important that we, don't do what the design review board did, which was look at it on content, because that is not our purpose. And Bo is very correct. This is adding complexity to what is already a very messy set of sign regulations. That makes me nervous, not because of the content, because of the signage. But that's just my opinion. It doesn't have to carry the day. I just think that I agree with Bo, and I just wanted to make sure that was stated. Are there any other questions from the commission members for the
Cynthia.
present-
I am.
Go ahead.
So do you have any non-display chargers, or does Volta just create display chargers?
So we have what we call pedestals, which are non-media as well. Yep.
Okay, so, because we have those at Big Y, like a charge point station, and those are, 2 hours for free, and then you get charged after, so would you be able to accommodate that? Because those are part of our obviously regulations already.
Yes, we have provisions in the parking regulations specific to EV charging and infrastructure requirements and those types of things. So EV stations, EV charging as a use is perfectly allowable.
Right.
What changes here
Is the
is display.
So is there a particular reason why you'd want to be, why you're trying to get the displays versus an EV charging station, which is already approved in our regulations?
Yeah, to Kristen's point, the ad revenue helps us subsidize the cost to the user. Right now, about 95% of our charges are level 2, which is just similar to the Blink ones out back.
Okay,
You need a lot of you need to move a lot of electrons to return on
so
that.
they would be considered superchargers?
No, they're not. No, these are still at level 2, which is
Still at
10 kilowatts an hour.
Okay.
You get anywhere from 30 to 40 miles.
I mean, I have a charging car, so, and I charge at Big Y and I don't pay anything, so, and it doesn't have a big display on it. So that's my point.
I think one of the,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think one of the other things to keep in mind is as we're transitioning into 2030 and 50% EVs, there's a few at Big Y, but that's not, especially, you know, within this part of the state, like Mike said, it's significantly underserved and there's just not enough supply to accommodate the demand that's coming. And so while there are a few pedestal chargers, to make it economical for EV charging companies to keep deploying their infrastructure and keep making it available at a reasonable rate for the consumers, this is the sort of technology that's also being mixed in. Now, that's not to say you're having like rows and rows of digital displays at the Stop and Shop, but to mix in those in order to make economic sense is what this is trying to accomplish.
Thank you. Ellen, you had a question?
Yeah, just, I had a quick question about the technology. It was described as something that has no audio, but the picture changes. Is it kind of like those electronic billboard signs that you see on 95, that they display one ad for a little while and then they change to another ad and then they change? Is that what you're talking about? Something similar to those billboards?
Call it a flip, and it goes every 8 seconds according to federal highway standards. Not like the gas stations, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
gas stations throw noise at you, they
Right.
throw.
And they're-
I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the billboards on, say, 95 that change periodically. I've never timed them. I don't know how long the display is. Is your display about the same length of time with a changing ad? Or, you know, how does your time interval compare to the ones on the highway?
8 seconds.
This will be every 8 seconds, the proposal.
You know what
is.
the highway ones are? I don't. I've never timed them.
They are probably the same. We both should be adhering to federal highway standards.
Because, you know, my 2 cents worth on those is that every 8 second, the highway frequency of changes is incredibly distracting if they are visible from a public, you know, from moving traffic.
Okay. I would like just to ask for clarification. I believe you stated in your presentation that and I'm sorry that I don't recall it, but that these are not, the proposal is for the signs to not be permitted in a place that's visible from the public right away. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The amendments have a 200-foot right-of-way setback built into them. So these stations with the digital displays will be 200 feet from any publicly traveled right-of-way.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission before I ask for public comment?
I have a question. Have you said there, I think 3,700 throughout the country. Has there been a town where you've had this sort of issue where you've found an alternate way to support advertising or some other way to keep the cost down?
Not to my knowledge, no. And I've testified in several AHJ's authorities holding jurisdiction like Clinton in Connecticut as well as Massachusetts.
Okay.
We do have some locations where we have the pedestal set in to provide the charging, and then we have a screen, a standalone screen similarly at the front of the store. Like, those are some of the workarounds that we worked on. And that's more like an ADA compliance issue where we can't fit both into one spot. But no, very good question, but not to my knowledge.
And just another question, how many did you discuss with Stop and Shop, how many you plan on or would like to install?
At this location, it's two level twos, yeah.
2 levels.
What will be the,
Is it, just to be, again, for clarification, that was at the location that may come to us later. What's the density of these that the regulation allows?
The regulation allows for 4 per lot. If more are proposed, then the Planning and Zoning Commission has to evaluate that, along with stricter standards that are provided. So the answer is 4.
Thank you.
And Kristen touched upon it earlier, right? We don't put 4 stations, 4 screens that close together. It's not, our advertisers, it's duplicative for them. We would put 2 pedestals and 2 screens if we got to 4 stations. It just, if you could imagine walking up to a store, like, you don't want to see the same ad 4 times, right? So it's, we tend to put pedestals in if we're doing more than 2 stations.
Ed?
Yeah, just for clarification, when I mentioned gas station, a lot, when you go to get gas, there's all displays on the gas station. Tell you what's inside, what to eat, all the, I mean, specials that are going. That's what I was referring to. Are these, the ones that you want to advertise? I know that's how you make your money for the advertising. Will they be loud or, quiet or,
There's no audio.
no audio?
No.
Totally silent.
There's no noise.
Okay, should,
Mike, I have a question.
thank you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Do the consumers use the charger via an app interface, or is it all on the screen itself?
So nowadays you just plug it in, right? We are going to put modules on there. So the Volta previously didn't do a good job of collecting information, right? You didn't have to do anything. There was no device attached to the machine. We will be attaching devices to these machines so that there is an engagement. We currently have a Volta app. It's going to go to the Shell Recharge app, and that's how the customer would, the end user would engage the device.
Okay, so that's what all their payments would be through the app.
Correct.
Is that what would be installed here, or would we get like a older version where they still have to?
All of our new builds have, it's called, Pater is the company that we use,
Okay.
that has the payment device.
Okay, why don't you just show an ad on the app instead of the entire parking lot? I mean, you can collect more data from the end user and give them a more highly targeted ad that would generate more revenue for Shell rather than just a blank screen that goes out to everybody.
Well, if you could picture it, I don't know how many EV owners there are in here. This member has one, I have one, right? At this time, the majority of people don't have EVs. So it's the people walking in and out of the store that these screens are engaging with more often than not. So from an advertising perspective, that's where the advertisers get their spend is on everyone, not just the person using the charger.
Who are the typical advertisers on these kiosks?
It's a lot of your automobile manufacturers, right, that are pushing their new EVs. And then with our partners, ADUSA, which owns Stop and Shop, and Hannaford and Giant Food down the Mid-Atlantic, it's food, it's Kraft, it's Heinz ketchup, it's all that stuff, right? That last impact buy when you walk into the store or leave the store.
The
Yeah,
automobile
we have to be careful, we can't regulate content.
Yeah, no.
So, don't, I don't want that type of, I don't want anybody to be concerned about that.
No, just curious, like, I mean, you mentioned the automobile manufacturers who all just announced like last week that they're slashing their production on EVs. So is it really gonna be necessary? What demand are we meeting if nobody's buying these vehicles? Is it really that necessary? They have ads on it?
Yeah, and the other option is, and we always avail this to the community, In my previous life, and I should have thanked you all for your service, I was in government for 30 years. I was a town manager in Milton, Mass, which is a very similar town to Clinton. What we try to do is capture all those people, but we also allow the authority holding jurisdiction to use those screens, right, for variable message boards. If you have like yard waste collection this week, or like if there's some type of art event going on down here someday. So about 10% of that content is dedicated to the authority holding jurisdiction to be able to promote things going on in and around the town.
And I think back to our earlier point, even as it stands now, there's not enough infrastructure to serve the EV owning population now, especially, Volta has a EV charging for all program, right? So when you think about EV owners, maybe you think about owners who like have a single family home, but what about people who are traveling? What about people who live in apartment buildings and people who need access to this infrastructure? Right now, this is a very underserved area, so this would help with that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the commission who has a question for the applicant?
I just comment, which was kind of related to what I had said earlier. While the reg does include a setback from the right of way, it does not appear to include any requirement for screening or anything of that sort. So they could be visible from the right of way, and that these things are 7-8 feet tall. They're not the size of your of your computer screen or the things that you see at the gas pumps. These are good sized signs, and they will be changing periodically. I think that they could still be distracting from the right of way.
Yeah. I didn't think they were that big, 7 or 8 feet. Can you clarify that for us, please?
It says in here, the description that they're 7.5 feet tall, and that the screen's 9 square feet per screen.
Okay, 7.5 feet is 7-8 feet, 7.5.
Right, but the sign itself is what I was getting at. What is the diagonal of the sign?
Yes, so it would be about 3 feet wide and about 4 feet high would be the actual screen.
About 3 feet by 4 would be 12 square feet. Your description here has it at 9
I
square.
think it's a little bit less than 3 square feet. I pulled the plan.
But you just said 3 by 4, which is 12 square feet.
I think I was just rounding off. It's about 2.6, something like that. We have the plan pulled, I pulled the exact number on it. Yeah, 27 inches wide by 48 inches high. So it's a little over 2 feet by 4 feet high.
Yeah, it's more than 9 square feet. So your description that you just gave us of the dimensions is conflicting with your description in the handout that we received, which says the applicant provided the following image of a kiosk, which could be up to 7.5 feet tall and include up to 9 square feet per screen.
Right.
The dimensions you just gave us exceed 9 square feet.
I don't believe they do.
Well, 2 times 8, and 2 times 4 is 8, and then you've got 0.7 times the 4 again, which is what? Another 2.8, you're well beyond 9 square feet. Do your math.
Well, 2.5 times 4 is 10. So,
And I think you said 2.25 feet.
2.25.
He
Okay,
said it was 27 inches, didn't he? That's 2.25 feet.
okay.
Oh,
Median is
2., yeah.
Then he's correct.
Mhm.
I thought he said 2.7, my apologies.
27.
27 inches.
Okay. Still, that's the size of, a television set. It's just turned on end. Your television set in portrait mode.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for the commission or for the applicant before I allow the public to ask questions, assuming there are public questions? Okay, with that, I would like to move to open this hearing for questions from the public. We ask that people come forward by either, well, making yourself present at the meeting so that we can recognize you, or if you're online, putting your name in the chat so that we can recognize you. What we will do is first take comments from those in favor of the application, followed by people who are in opposition to the application, and then we'll take general comments or questions. So that said, is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this application? Hearing none. Hearing none, I'll return. Are there any additional questions from the commission?
I don't have a question, Mike, but in my opinion, I think we should continue this public hearing to our next meeting so that we can all review our sign regulations a bit more closely and see if we feel there is a conflict or a sufficient conflict.
Well, then I think you need to make a motion like that.
Well, Kathy's holding her hand
I
up.
just wanted to let you all know, for zoning it, I believe the regulation you're referring to is 34.9.7 in our zoning regs. Just because you mentioned which were the regulations, I thought you meant you mentioned which one.
And for, just to be clear, the purpose of this regulation coming before you is because these types of displays are not inherently approvable under the sign regulations as currently written. That's why they are here. And so that, I think that's important to be clear on that. This is, and the premise of the application is essentially that screen would be removed from having any applicability. There would be no applicability of section 34 of the sign regulations. If you were to approve this, it would essentially mean that as long as it's attached to this EV charging station, it's the EV component of this that makes it something else according to what's been proposed to you, that unit is the use that you are looking to approve, not separate signage. You wouldn't go after, the separately for
Nothing
signage,
else.
but it
Just
is
that.
not, right, but it is not as a sign on itself. If somebody were to propose a, 9 square foot sign of a screen this type, would not be allowed in the regulations today. So this is a way.
I still think it would be prudent to review our sign regulations, to be a little bit more familiar with them, when we evaluate this type of an application. And we have to keep in mind that this use, I personally don't have any objection to the use of the kiosks for charging. But, I mean, what's to prevent anybody from trying to promote their use in the future? That's what we have to think about. I mean,
But it still has to come before, with all due respect, it still has to come before this.
it does,
Commission.
but if it goes through you have to have, even if it's a special use, unless you have a special reason to deny it, you're basically setting up the parameters at which you have to apply. And if they meet those parameters, even if it's special use or special exception, then you have to prove it. Just because it's special use, you don't have carte blanche to say, no, I don't like this, in that parking lot. If it meets the special use outlines, unless you can come up with another reason to deny it, you should approve it. That's, how it works in zoning law.
Right.
So I think that we really have to give this a long look and review our sign regulations in a little bit more detail, because as I stated, I think that this might open a door to, this is a use that I get the opinion that all of us like this idea of the kiosks, but what about some other type of kiosk that maybe we aren't so favorable for? And how can you deny one?
Can you give me an example of one? Well,
If you did it at gas station, for instance, a large, this is a fairly large display.
that's why I was asking about the gas station, because I see them on the gas station.
Yeah, but not to this degree. This.
No, they have.
Excuse me. What I would ask is if you want to do this, please make a motion and we can see if people want to continue or not.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this public hearing until our next meeting.
I just want to see one other thing, Mr. Chairman, before.
Oh, wait, did somebody second that?
No,
I'll second the motion so we can get a vote.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay,
Now we can discuss
discussion.
it.
Go ahead, Ed.
Mhm.
Okay. It's my son. I'm just saying, he has one of those EVs. He's gonna go over to Old Saybrook. I mean, that's his fault for buying a car. I mean, I'm just saying. So, that's where he goes. And the reason I asked about the other ones is because I wasn't watching my gas station. I pulled into the gas station to gas. Well, if there was a line, you wouldn't believe trying to charge your cars. So there's definitely a need for this. And if, I'm just saying my feelings, and, I don't think it has to be, I don't think there has to be, go crazy with signage and all that, just, if it's quiet and it serves the public, you're serving the public, you're serving the community for the cars. But my kid goes all the way to Sabre, it's crazy. I
Thank
mean.
you. Is there any more on the motion to continue?
We have a motion, it's been seconded.
Yeah.
Okay. Cynthia, you had a comment?
No, I thought we were voting.
Oh, okay. In that case, this is, for, continuing the public hearing until, next month. All those in favor?
You want me to do a roll call?
Do a roll call because we better, it
Yeah.
might not be, unanimous.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
did you say aye?
Yes.
Okay. Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Eddie Alvarino,
Nay.
Mike Newton's not here. Cynthia?
Aye.
Yes. Jay Mandel,
Nay.
Sam is absent. Dylan Walter,
Aye.
and Bo Clark,
Aye.
and Susan's alternate and didn't, we did seat you actually.
Yes.
So Susan?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion to continue passed. This, public hearing is continued until next month then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next public hearing is Planning and Zoning Commission 24-7, proposed amendments to section 28, accessory uses, outdoor entertainment, home occupations, accessory dwelling units. This is ours, so there is no clock on it. We have the comments from, or the comments, the information from the town planner on this for us to look at. Can Abby, can you summarize this for the public?
Absolutely. So this application is the third in a series of 3 amendments to section 28 accessory uses in the Clinton zoning regulations. It deals primarily with clarifying the permitting mechanisms that certain uses are subject to under section 28, whether it's by right, by zoning permit, by site plan, by special exception, those types of things. Some of the things that are key here in the commission's language that the commission sort of previously agreed to put out in this format, includes allowances for incidental office uses inside warehouses. There's some retail incidental use as well. So it's, again, we're getting some questions from folks who wanted office space as well and not wanting to have to come back through a very large permitting process to get that in an existing building. So that's added in. Adding the allowed locations for temporary healthcare structures because they were previously omitted in the zoning regulations. So we just need to clarify that and be consistent with state law on that. And then the biggest one is updating requirements for accessory dwelling units to be consistent with state law. When Clinton adopted its section of regulations, it was slightly before PA 2129. And so some of the provisions of that legislation were slightly different from what was adopted here. Clinton did not opt out of that legislation. So this is an attempt to make sure that we are consistent with the terms of that. And a lot of that has to do with not putting design, provisions and requirements onto, residential uses where they're not defined elsewhere. So for example, we don't have design requirements for single family homes. So therefore we can't put them on the accessory dwelling units to these residences. So things like that are included in here. Some redundant language is taken out. And the most important part of this revision is 28.4D, which deals with the calculation for the size requirements of the accessory dwelling units to be, we've made that now consistent with statute, which is the accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 1,000 square feet or 30% of the area of the principal dwelling, whichever is less. The previous language essentially put us in this bizarre calculation loop that no one could quite interpret, because it was based on the combined floor area of the accessory and the principal. But then you go up and you're sort of in this loop. The actual calculation was a little bit of a mystery. And so it's been difficult to enforce that. So this will be this is the primary question we get on this regulation consistently is how much space can I have? And this will allow us to give definitive answers and give some predictability for people who want these units in their homes or on their properties. So that's the purpose here. We have a suggested, so I provided a staff report with a suggested motion for the commission that essentially looks at consistency with both zoning regulations of the POCD, notes that this was advertised properly for legal notice purposes, and essentially that, again, this is the commission's language that has been a result of your hard work over these many months.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments from the commission before I open this up for the public? Go ahead, Susan.
I just have one question, and I'm new to this, and I know there've been many revisions. In this incidental retail and adding office, I know that in some towns, we're looking at empty space that's used for recreational purpose, generally on a temporary basis. Would that fall under what you're adding here? And is that something that we want? So that's a totally different area?
So it would be a different use, and that would be either accounted for in the uses, and people would have the ability to permit those things under here. We don't have a provision for a temporary recreational space. They would need to go through sort of the indoor recreational elements in the section, in section 27's use table.
And if it was not temporary, would that also be the case? So
Correct.
for example, we talk a lot about basketball and pickleball and that sort of thing. If that were proposed, is this something while we're looking at an amendment, we want to make sure it's inclusive?
I think the question that the commission would need to wrestle with, so it's not included in this language now.
Right.
It's something that we can take a look at going forward. I think some of the things to be clear about is that when you get into those recreational uses, as compared to warehouse, office, or retail that's associated with that warehousing or that use, the parking parameters, other needs of the site may change, public access, all those types of things, which is why they're listed a little bit separately. So the incidental component of this, I think the question we'd have more conversation about how incidental, what do we mean by that? What is that time frame? So I think it's certainly something that could be sent to the regulations committee for further review, but it's not in this.
Not in this one.
language.
Okay, because
Yeah.
also the square footage would be totally different then.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there other members of the commission that have comments or questions? Hearing none, I would like to again open this up for anyone from the public. As the camera pans around, I don't see anybody from the public here. He doesn't count. He's an sort of ex officio. Sort of, kind of. In that case, would anybody be willing to make the motion that, or something similar to what, staff has provided?
Close the public hearing first?
Oh, you're right. Let's close the public hearing first. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second it.
Okay. Got a second from Mike. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining, the motion carries. Thank you. I got ahead of myself.
Mhm.
Let's see. I have to get back on my agenda. Okay. The next item are staff reports. We've dealt with two of the three already. I would like to delay talking about the staff report for PZC 24-1 until we get to that application, unless there's an objection. Hearing none, we've already talked about the staff report for the kiosks and the staff report for section 28. So we can move on to item 6, which is new business. Planning and Zoning Commission 24-5, which is a CAM application for Riverside Drive earthwork to create a berm for a settling basin to accompany dredging of Cedar Island Marina. The agent is Aaron Schumacher, and for this one, we don't need a presentation because we can just receive this tonight, and there is no other action to be taken on it. So, can I have a motion? Okay, thank you, Ellen.
I'll
Okay,
second.
thank you, Ed.
I'd like to make a motion. PZZ 24. What are you laughing
Well,
at?
Ellen made the motion to receive, and I'll take you as the second.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Okay, so any discussion on receiving this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody in opposition? Okay, say it carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a similar application. This is Planning and Zoning Commission 24-6, which is a special exception application. This will require a public hearing. So we need to receive this for Riverside Drive earthwork to create a berm for settling basin to accompany dredging of Cedar Island Marina. For the special exception, we need to receive it and schedule it for a public hearing on May 13th, 2024. We've gotten some comments in already, and those are in the file, but we don't have have everything for this yet. Well, at least I don't think we have everything for it yet. So can I have a motion to receive and schedule for public hearing the special exception for earthwork to create a berm for settling basin to accommodate the dredging of Cedar Island Marina?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Staying, motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is old business. The first item here is Planning and Zoning Commission 24-1, which is the removal of the existing crushed stone bocce court at Clinton Town Beach, replacement with an asphalt basketball court and fencing. This one we need to make a decision on tonight. We have a letter from Park and Rec requesting that we deny this application, and I believe, well, I know that the report from staff on this provides some comment on how, on the wording for that. Abby, can you review your comments?
Yep, absolutely. So, as you know, this application was before the commission twice. So the last 2 meetings has been the subject of discussion. Minor modifications were made to the plan. It was still not enough to be compliant with section 26.8.2 of the zoning regulations governing that prohibition on new impervious area within the 50 feet of the tidal wetlands. And so, Park and Rec has decided that they're not going to invest further in this particular location. They're not going to amend plans. They're going to revise and think about what they should be doing next at the beach and what the overall program may look there in order to come up with something that is compliant with the zoning regulations and meets their goals for programming in that space. So, I don't yet know what that will look like. I haven't had those conversations yet, but have certainly extended, multiple offers to have those chats with the commission and folks who are governing over there. So we are certainly working to help this move forward in whatever way it can in a compliant manner. In the meantime, because they have elected not to withdraw their application, the deadline for the commission's decision, is upcoming on April 17th. And so that means the commission needs to act at this meeting. And so the request from the chair of the Park and Rec Commission was, to simply go forward with the commission sort of obligatory denial of the application, which will then enable them to kind of move on with their planning work.
Abby, if I,
Go ahead. Bo,
isn't
you can
there,
go.
isn't there some wording if you could deny with prejudice and without prejudice that affects their time for reapplying? If we deny it, they can't apply within a certain amount of time, but if we
You
deny without prejudice, it removes that time limit.
Certainly you could, since we know they may come back with something else
So
within a
is
time
that, is
period.
that the correct verbiage?
Yeah, so you could certainly say, on the recommended motion here where it says I move to deny, you could say without prejudice and then have no restrictions on where they may go with this in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good question. Any other, comments, questions?
No.
Okay. Bo, I'm gonna ask if, you would be willing to make a motion here.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to deny the application PZ 24-1 without prejudice for a coastal site plan at Clinton Town Beach as shown on plans titled Construction of Basketball Court at Clinton Town Beach, prepared by WBA Group Incorporated, dated January 31st, 2024, and revised through March 6th, 2024, and adopt the following findings of fact. The proposed project will result in 1,022 square feet of new impervious surface within 50 feet of an adjacent tidal wetland. The application does not meet the requirements of section 26.8.2 of the Clinton zoning regulations, which prohibits new impervious area within 50 feet of a tidal wetland buffer.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Let's see, next we have Planning and Zoning Commission 24-2. This is the kiosk, which has been continued, so we have no action to take on it at this point. We'll move on to Planning and Zoning Commission 24-4. It's a CAM application. It's on the agenda for 53 Shore Road. This application has been withdrawn, so we don't have to do anything with that at the moment, or period. Which brings us to Planning and Zoning Commission 24-7, proposed amendments to the section 28, accessory uses, outdoor entertainment, home occupations, accessory dwelling units. This public hearing just closed a few minutes ago. So we're now in the where we can discuss our thoughts about this. Does anybody on the commission have any thoughts that they want to say about this change to the regulations? Hearing none, would anyone be interested in making a motion similar to or using the text provided by the staff, the suggested motion?
I move to make a motion. I move to approve the proposed changes to the section 28 of the Clinton zoning regulations as drafted in application PZC 24-7 with an effective date of May 15th, 2024, and adopt the following findings of fact. One, the public hearing for the proposed text amendments to section 28 of the Clinton zoning regulations met the notice requirements in section 4.39 of the Clinton zoning regulations and CGS 8-7D. The proposed amendments are consistent with section 1.4 of the Clinton zoning regulations. And 3, the proposed amendments are generally consistent with the vision for preservation and neighborhood character, including in the 2015 plan.
You went past. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? The motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone.
Mhm.
Move on to item 8, committee reports. Regulations Committee.
So I can give this one if that's okay. Zach was kind enough to join Kathy and I in a very small meeting last Thursday. We were talking through section 30 of the zoning regulations, which is the design guidelines. So as the commission is aware, there's sort of 2 pieces relative to what started off as the downtown conversation through town council and a request of this body to take a look at the zoning regulations and what may be feasible sort of going into to support some of the downtown work, but also to look at sort of commercial areas around town. The direction right now, the regulations committee is going in is to first, because it is a little bit of a lower lift, to look at the design guidelines in section 30 and talk about how they do or don't achieve the results that we are hoping to see in terms of good design in the town. So we'll be working through that conversation in the next series of meetings. The larger part of this conversation that will come after this one, I think, is maybe not larger, but probably more complicated, is an overhaul of our sign regulations. And that is going to take, I think, a little bit more time. So it's a tough section. And so we'll certainly support through that. So what we talked about with Zach was, in order to sort of start this conversation and get an idea of the flavor of what the commission is hoping to find. And it's important to keep in mind that what we're talking about in section 30 for this first part of the conversation is a discussion of all commercial, industrial, non-residential property in town. So it's not just the downtown that's under these design guidelines or regulations and the zoning regulations. It's everything except village districts. So like East Main Village District wouldn't be included in that has its own set of provisions. But any sort of general commercial industrial area, which includes downtown, would be included now. And this, for downtown at least, is a bit of a placeholder or an opportunity to improve until such time as we get through those planning initiatives, the Thrive Grant, the POCD, the things that will inform a potential downtown district later on. So this is kind of a step to what may happen downtown for something more specific or form-based this. So in the interim, section 30, there are things that are probably good about it. There are things that are fairly vague, and may or may not be the things that we want to see. And so we want to go through those standards one by one. We're not going to go into incredible detail now. We'll do that work at the regulations committee. But one of the things that we spoke about with Zach was, if folks are out and about, and you can send just to me, not to the whole group, because we don't want to hold the meeting via email, but send to me 3 pictures of buildings that you think reflect the overall design, whether it's an element of the building, whether it is, the landscaping, lighting, signage, whatever it is that you are seeing that you like. 3 pictures that show us what you think are positive additions for the community and just a quick blurb on why. And 3 that you think are perhaps something that we don't want the regulations to inadvertently permit or encourage. it's a way for us to start the conversation. What I'll do is I'll take these things and mesh them together, so it's a little bit anonymous, so it's not, okay, Eddie likes this one, but not this one, right? We don't wanna go there. Right, so we'll be careful about that, but it would be, I think it would be an interesting exercise. We did something similar when the town council was first starting their visioning for downtown, and sort of said, just send to me the things you like and don't like, and it was a little bit eye-opening for folks to see, without tying whose opinion was what, just to get all of those opinions out there. So, before the next design guidelines meeting, so we're hoping, let me get a calendar up here. It's the first Thursday of the month. If folks can give it to me at least a few days ahead of time, it would be helpful, and I will compile those and put them into a presentation to have that next step of the conversation.
The
For
first
that meeting.
Thursday of May, right?
Of May, yes. So let's just pull up what that is. That is May 2nd. So that's like 2.5 weeks or so, if folks, and again, if you're anybody who's just out and about, right? Just snap a picture, email it right over with a quick, and you don't, even if you say, I'm not gonna take them all at once and compile them into an email, if you're just out, snap a picture with a comment, send it over, and I'll get them in, and we'll go from there. So.
I think that's a very good idea, Abby. Thank you. And I also would recommend people look at section 30. In the meantime, make sure you have an opinion about what is in that section, also. And that may inform what you're taking photographs of.
Yes, and I'll send around a copy of section 30 that I walked back through that sort of says, okay, here are some of my questions and initial comments on things that either appear vague or we may have opportunity to help sort of guide a little bit more. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, the next item is correspondence and bills. We do have correspondence from the town of Westbrook for their zoning regulations, and I have to be honest, I did not look at their correspondence. So I don't know what they were proposing.
It's fairly minor. It essentially deals with who by regulation has the responsibility to manage notice requirements. So it's not something that necessarily affects any particular property in town here, unless, it's making sure that applicants are responsible for getting notices out to a budding property owner. So if there's an application on the border, then those property owners would receive notice essentially in the same way they have by policy with a letter, and then the legal notice, not a physical posting on site.
Right.
So that's, which they don't do now. It's really essentially just codifying their policy.
In my opinion, I don't think we need to comment on that then. And unless somebody feels strongly the other way, I think we can just let this go.
Let it go.
Let it go. Okay. With that, we are now to adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion? There isn't any? All those in favor?
I.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:04. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
You can stop the recording.
About the kids.
Well, right.